Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's Monday night panel. Unfortunately, we were due to have an on the sofa this evening, but our guest couldn't make it, so we have reverted to do a Monday night panel. So let's bring Vic on.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Vic. You
How
okay?
are you? Yeah, I'm all right. Got the
Good,
snuffles.
thank you.
I think it's a bit of jet lag from Saturday,
dear.
to be honest. Yeah.
Air conditioning in that plane, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a different time zone as well, of course, up there, isn't it? So it takes a while to get over it.
Okay,
Yes.
so we've got some SAS stuff to
I
do.
have got some SAS news for you. Now, there are reserve lists for Walsall and Grimsby, and you can get on those reserve lists tomorrow on the phone. And they've got one bus already, but they need more people for both of the Walsall and Grimsby trips to get another bus. So if you want to go to either of those and you want to go on the bus, get on the phone tomorrow night from 7 o'clock. They will not be open on Thursday because it's the official supporters club end of season dinner, is it not, Chris?
It is. It certainly is. So we look forward to seeing anybody that's actually booked to come on that night for us, which should be quite a good evening. So
yeah, got a dodgy presenter, but never mind. We'll be all right. Yep.
Dodgy one, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's bring everybody on. So we've got Phil.
Evening.
Phil.
We've got Andrew.
Hello.
Hello.
Got a correspondent from Scotland.
Okay.
And
hello, folks.
We have now got Rob.
Rob's back from the pub. Oh, he's gone again. He's been in the pub, now he's come back.
Yeah,
there he is.
There we go.
Yeah.
I'm here. Sorry.
Lovely. All right. Craig has his. Craig's got his eclipse glasses as well, haven't you, Craig? Just in case.
Yeah, well, in Scotland, it's 11% of totality at 8 o'clock. So I've got these that I've saved since 1999. Unfortunately, it's a bit cloudy, so I might try and flock them on eBay a bit quick to some Americans.
Yeah, in the aforementioned 1999, of course, down here in the southwest, it was the area of totality, but it was much like it is now.
Yeah,
and there is no sign of any sun whatsoever. So there we go. Yeah.
Okay, I will leave you to it, and I'll see you later.
Chris, thanks very much indeed. Yes, the total eclipse of the sun is taking place in the United States, North America, etc. As we speak, I think, in various parts of it. Phil, welcome. Is this your debut?
No, I've been on once before.
You have. I seem to remember you being on once before. Absolutely. Yes. Andrew, a veteran by now. We should do like they do on Fighting Talk and count up how many times you've been on, really, shouldn't we? That'd be quite good.
Well, maybe there's some kind of reward in store. I don't know.
No, there's no reward.
Okay. I suspected not, but
thanks for asking. Craig, welcome. Thank you very much indeed. Lovely to see you. You only had a 3-hour trip on Saturday, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. I'm sorry that I'm not a former player, so I haven't got anecdotes that I can share with you. It's my second appearance, so thank you for having me back. Yeah, a nice, relatively short journey. So I'm indebted to Richard Parkin and his two sons, and together the four of us are the Scotland branch of the STFC Supporters Club. So we were all on manoeuvres together. We left here Kirkintilloch outside Glasgow at 9 a.m. Got to Oxenholme to pick up Bob Burns from London, who'd come up on the train, and then we had a nice leisurely drive over to Barrow. We were back home by 9 p.m. So not quite a home fixture, not quite as close as Carlisle is going to be next season, but it makes a change from 8-9 hours on the road. So yeah, it's good.
Rob, I can only just say lightweight. I think that's fair to say, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, 8-9 hours on the road. That was the long way there, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, I felt like it. And actually, Phil, you could finish on something happened on the bus on the way back, which was pretty scary, I think, wasn't it?
Yes, we were coming down the A419, and there was a diversion at the Ashton Keynes turn off. And as we were going along the Spine Road, there was a sudden crash, and everybody who was sleeping on the coach suddenly woke up with a jump. And we had hit a tree that had fallen in the gales. And thankfully, our driver, Danny, who's brilliant, managed to keep the coach steady. And the window on the left-hand side was very damaged, but his side he could see okay, so we were able to carry on. But it was quite a scary moment.
I'm sure it was. And we should say thank you very much to Danny and to Thomas for their superb driving on Saturday, which is magnificent. My only problem was trying to stay on the Avonmouth Bridge as the gusts of wind were blowing across it. But apart from that, it was fine. Right, let's kick off then with Saturday. Barrow 0, Swindon Town 2. Williams Kokolo with his first goal for the town. And Powell Glatzel, who has now got 6 since his January move. But I wanted to start, Andrew, with the name Namdi Obafor. Is that right?
I think it's Offerball.
Offerball. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I do apologise. I thought he was superb. What was your view?
Yeah, no, I think he did a great job in there. I mean, especially given his sort of various fitness things, not only to last 90 minutes, but just he feels like that player that's not been there remotely since Liam Kinsella to some extent, but arguably a bit better than that. So, sat there, broke things up, kept the ball moving, just did the job you really wanted your sort of central defensive midfielder to do, and that defence needs a little bit of extra protection, and they got it at last. And you can partly see the result in that nice fat 0 next to Barrow in the newspaper. And
he wanted the ball as well, didn't he? He's demanding it all the way through, really.
Yeah, no, I think I'm sure he's desperate to be involved as much as he can, given how long he's been out of football. But that's also nice, perhaps, to have someone kind of just sort of take a grip and be demanding. I think as well, because I'm sure you probably hear more than I do, or people do in their seats compared to us at the back with our headphones on. But that sounds very encouraging. That there is someone who wanted to be vocal and bring some leadership to a team that doesn't always look like it's had it.
No, Craig, I mean, he was at Rangers, of course, and he's had terrible problems over the last 3 years. Hasn't played a full game of football for 3 years. He played on Monday at Sutton, of course, played on Saturday. And the comparison to Anthony Grant is obvious. I mean, that is the obvious comparison. I know Jamie Newton has said Diagaraga as well. But what are your thoughts? Because, he would have fitted in with Rangers if it hadn't been for his problems, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, I never saw him play up here, but I mean, in terms of the kind of human factor, it's fantastic that he's fit enough to be playing, and and long may his recovery continue. Likewise, Mr. McCurdy as well. But I think the comparisons of the general are obvious. He looked more comfortable. He looked sharper, and he looked like he wanted it more than he did at Sutton. I thought Sutton was appalling. I think they all played poorly on, was it Monday? Monday, wasn't it? But yeah, much better. But I think he was the heartbeat. He was just there, reliable. He was showing for the ball, and yeah, as you said, breaking things up. And I thought we seemed to be pressing much higher. I don't know whether other people noticed that, but I thought we were doing all the things that teams have been doing to us a lot this season. But yeah, I think it was great.
With Mambi was pushing them forward all the time.
Yeah.
He wasn't content for them to sit back. He was wanting all the time to move forward.
So I think that's that's a contribution he's making straight away, isn't it? That he's holding that line, and that he's pushing them on. But yeah, I was great, very very impressed with his performance, and no debate about him being man of the match for me.
No, absolutely. This is from Kevin. Can I say, due to illness, I couldn't make Barrow, which was my first away game missed for a Saturday. I enjoyed Rob and Andrew's commentary on the game. Great work, guys. When you see them, Rob and Andy, would you pass on our best wishes to them and say what a good job they did? That would be really good if you could do that. That'd be good. Rob, what was your thought on that? I mean, it annoyed me a bit on Saturday because we didn't have a man of the match on the bus, did we? Because of it's already been decided. I won't give any more away, but it has already been decided, so we didn't bother with it. But I would have definitely put him down as man of the match. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, well, it's quite interesting, actually, isn't it? Because obviously in the commentary box on the opposite side of the pitch, you sometimes see a slightly different game to what all the supporters do on the other side. But we didn't. We saw exactly the same game that you did, because I gave him man of the match on the in the commentary, and it was so noticeable. I think the one thing for me, we can give what superlatives we want about particular performances or whatnot, but it's what you miss. And I think we saw there what we'd been missing all season. That was the key for me. Andrew mentioned the big fat zero next to Barrow. Without a central defensive midfield player of his ilk, we would not have achieved that on Saturday. It's as simple as that. And we can always compare to players of past, and we all know the obvious comparisons that we can make. But we make those comparisons because we know those players fitted our system and they were absolutely perfect for us at the time. And it's been so obvious that defence has needed protection all season, and they've just not got it from the centre of their midfield. That was the first time in the whole season it actually looked like they were a competent unit, and that's because of a perfectly good player sat directly in front of them, breaking up the play. So I thought he had a massive effect on the team, not only his own individual performance, but he had a massive effect on the team. And obviously a massive effect on the morale for everybody who was there watching it, because after Monday, I don't think we could have been any lower in our boots after Monday's performance at Sutton. And we were just lifted by that. It was just exceptional. So all credit to him. And as Craig said a few minutes ago, long may his recovery continue, because anyone who's been out with any kind of long-term injury obviously makes it it's very difficult to come back and hit the heights again. But for somebody who's had the type of the real problems, let's call it, that he's had over the course of the last 3 years, it's a joy really just to see him back on the pitch, let alone playing at that sort of level.
Sure. Phil, the one thing I noticed as well, he was calling in the huddles. When they had the huddle, he was the man directing the huddle. It was almost as if he said, look, I'm in charge here. I'm doing this. It was quite an interesting thing to see, wasn't it?
Well, he's a natural leader, isn't he? Because he leads by example. And, he didn't hide at all. And one of the things that struck me on Saturday, I thought Kokolo had his best game of the season. And almost that gave the confidence for Kokolo to be able to break down the left because Mandy was going to be snooping around and ready to block anything coming forward. It just gave them more confidence in moving forward, I think.
I think the thing is, Andrew, I kind of love midfield players. You just sit in that middle area and they play little 5-yard passes. It's nothing complicated. Having said that, he's a bit of a ball player too, isn't he? He can drag the ball back, he can do a few tricks, but he does the simple things really well. I mean, I think we might be over egging the pudding on the course of one game, but it's something we've desperately needed. And I really enjoy watching a player like that.
Yeah, no, it was really nice to see someone just sort of take a grip of midfield in the way that the other midfielders haven't really been able to do so. As you say, there is clearly a bit of skill in there to go with all those kind of defensive qualities as well. But that's the main thing, isn't it? Just keep it simple. That was very simple, Anthony Grant. Keep it ticking over. But the good thing about Anthony Grant was you'd usually get a good forward pass from him. You wouldn't just get a kind of square pass to keep it going. He'd start to prompt things, and there were little signs of that. So no, it was very good. I suppose we've been so lacking in kind of names and performances to sort of latch ourselves to. That it's understandable. We get a little bit carried away, and I guess the perspective is, he's still coming back from an incredibly long time out, and how much he can sustain that between now and the end of the season. But it was a really good performance at a really important time, just so we can all approach this last month without doing nail biting, really.
Yeah, let's have a look at the bottom of the table then. Swindon 19th, played 42, points 50, goal difference -4, although that's now not a factor. Salford, they're in a bit of trouble. They're 20th, 43 points, 47 points from 43 games, -16 is their goal difference. Grimsby 21st, played 41, 43 points, it's -17. Sutton in 22nd, they got out of the bottom two, played 43, points 39, -25. And the bottom two, Colchester, they've got games in hand. They've only played 40, 38 points, -19 goal difference. And bottom of the tree, Forest Green Rovers in 24th, 42 played, 36 points, -29 is a goal difference. Craig, I'm guessing we think Forest Green have gone. So who gets the other place, I'm guessing? Are we all of that opinion, do you think? Craig?
I think, it's no trip to the New Lawn next season, which is good because the the views were shocking. I quite enjoyed the pies actually, but the views are shocking. I think they're down. I think Sutton have got the ascendancy. They're the team in form, aren't they?
Yeah.
They up until the weekend they won 3 or 4 on the bounce, and they just bullied us. They just bullied us on Monday, didn't they? I mean, it's so I think Sutton will avoid the drop. I think Colchester won't make it. I think Grimsby have got too many points to be sucked in personally, but they'll be up for it. I mean, I think they'll give us a hard game when we go there in a few weeks' time. But I think for me, it's Colchester who are going to go down with Forest Green.
Interesting. Rob, what are your thoughts? I mean, I don't think the word celebrating staying up in the Football League is the right word. I mean, I think it's just relief, really, apart from anything else. But we can now look upon that bottom 2 sort of situation and think, well, we're not interested. So who's going to go down?
It was a huge sigh of relief, I think, is the right way to describe Saturday's win. I think it was 47 may in the long run prove to be enough points to have stayed up because of the fixtures that the other teams at the bottom have actually got between now and the end of the season. But I still wouldn't have felt comfortable if we'd been sat on 47 points where we're talking today. So that was a huge relief, that 3 points on Saturday. In terms of who goes down, I think because of their fixtures, Forest Green won't get out of it. I think they're pretty much nailed on now. If they do get out of it, they're going to have to take 3 wins at least from their last 4 games. And with the fixtures they've got, I can't see that happening. I do think Colchester's games in hand, thanks to their controversial narrowing of their pitch with the Cowleys in charge because of their completely inadequate watering system over the course of the drainage system over the course of this season. I think they will probably do enough because they've got home fixtures in hand. So I think that might just save them. And as much as Sutton have been in form, I think they're still, for me, the second favourites to go down just because they've only got 3 games left to play. If they win all 3, they've got a chance of staying up. But I would say Colchester at the moment. I think Grimsby will do enough. I think they've got too many teams now to play who are going to be without any real pressure. So I think that's going to be enough for them. And Salford at 47, although I wouldn't have felt comfortable on 47, still think they'll probably pick up 1 or 2 more points and that'll be enough to keep them safe.
Darren says, will there be an open bus top tour after the win at Barrow? Well, no is the answer to that. Although with that branch on Saturday, Phil, you never know. It could have been
very nearly.
Yeah, it nearly was. What are your thoughts on that then, Phil, at the bottom of the table?
I think Sutton are the ones that will go down with Forest Green. As Rob said, Colchester, with their home advantage now, I think will escape somehow there. Grimsby, I don't think they should be down there. They're too good to be down there in one sense. And Salford, I think, with their strength, they will escape. But it's, Sutton, for me, I think that will go down. They've just left their revival too late.
It's amazing, really, isn't it, Salford? I don't get it, Phil, do you? I mean, if you look at one club in League Two who ought to be challenging every year towards the top, it should be them. But it just seems that they don't get it right, do they?
They're soulless, though, aren't they, the ground? And that must affect it. We've gone there and always, we haven't got thumped there at all.
No.
It's, we've had to create the atmosphere in the ground. And, it's a team of mercenaries in one sense who've been paid quite a bit to go in there, but they've never gelled. No. Whoever the manager is, and they've been through more managers, I think, than Swindon.
Really? I don't think that's possible, is it? Was it 34 since year 2000? I think. So we haven't lost there yet, Andrew, have we? I think I'm right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right. I'm pretty sure. Was it even? I'm trying to remember whether this season was the first draw or not, but we've definitely not lost that.
So it was a draw, I think, but it seems such a long time ago. I can't remember. What are your thoughts on the bottom then? I mean, obviously you've seen all the teams. Most of us have seen all the teams, and what would you say?
I think I'm joining the consensus on Forest Green. I shall reveal my sadness. But for a while, since things have been going so badly, I've been watching all the kind of expected goal stuff and totting it up. of which the long shot is Forest Green spend a lot of games creating absolutely zero chances, really. So despite some of their wins, so I can't see them getting the wins they need against good opponents. And I think Sutton, although they've clearly improved, will probably just run out of time, because I can see Colchester scrambling enough draws and maybe the odd win to be safe. I think Colchester have still got to play Grimsby at Colchester, so that's quite tasty, and that might be quite tasty in a couple of weeks. But I think the Sutton Cavalry has come over the hill that bit too late for them. So I think geographically I prefer it if Colchester went, because it's just a fairly soulless trip, as we've said before. But I suspect the Cowleys will do enough to keep them hanging on, and they'll be a more difficult proposition next season. So we may have seen the last of Sutton for a while. So there's my not very bold prediction.
Obviously, with Forest Green being a vegetarian, I am quite disappointed they're going down, quite honestly, because it's the only decent meal we get at a football ground all season. But anyway, let's get off my high horse now. Ian says, Salford, big money, small club. Fair point. Nobody's going to argue with that. Hi, Mark. There was no doubt we were all looking at the mathematic calculations at the end of Saturday. It felt strange to be celebrating staying in the division. I don't know, Craig. I think celebrating's the wrong word. We're not going down, so should we leave it at that? That's the best way of putting it, isn't it?
It's small mercies. I think it's been a shocking season. This will be the worst season, not only in living memory, but in the record of the club. I don't think we're going to crack the Beamish line. I think I'm going to sound a bit like Thatcher now. Let's just rejoice, and I don't often invoke Margaret Thatcher quotations, but I mean, I think in the face of just an appalling, 8 months of trite, except the first 6 games, I think we're right to celebrate a little bit. But I've just seen a comment from Tim coming in. I think there's a lot of stuff going on, but I think let's just make the most of the fact that we are staying up. It could have been a lot worse. I fear for next season. Everything depends on who we can keep over the summer and who's in charge, what the finances are going to look like. But I wouldn't be surprised if next season is a relegation battle. My prediction.
Well, the gist of it, Rob, was that comment was that we talk a load of rubbish. Why don't we concentrate on the important things like who will be manager next season? Okay, so let's talk about the important things like who will be manager next season. We don't have any control over that whatsoever. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I've been listening to him over the course of the last 3 months. I should start my answer with listen, really, shouldn't I? Because I think that's what he says at the start of every interview. But if I'm honest, has he done enough to justify staying on in a managerial capacity? I don't believe so. And if you add to the fact that it's not going to encourage season ticket sales, that's for sure. People want to see a change. I think people want to see... If Gavin Gunning had brought a team in that would play the type of football that he played in his 2 matches when he was a caretaker manager, I think we'd be having a different discussion. But he seems to have been a bit, what's the right word, carefree with his substitutions. There doesn't seem to be too much planning around them. It just seems to be that I've got these players that I've brought in the January transfer window, and I've got to play them all at some point. And it's square pegs in round holes a lot of the time. It finally feels like he stumbled on a formation and a system that worked on Saturday. And was that more Gavin Gunning's planning, or was that more a case of the fact that it just worked? And I feel more like it's the latter than the former, unfortunately. I don't ever want to see the back of any managers. You know that, Vic. I've gone on record many times before now and said I always wish the best for every manager, because you know fully well if he is what we wanted, we're all going to rejoice and celebrate for it. But I don't think in the current climate, Gavin Gunning's going to be the one that's going to sell season tickets. So we need a better and a bigger name than that for us to be able to all unite around next season. And you've got 4 games now when we're safe. If you're going to make a decision, the time to make it is now and get that person in before the end of the season.
Well, Colin Calderwood's been suggested by Kevin. What are your thoughts on this, Phil? Because maybe, that formation on Saturday had Drinan up front alongside Glatzel. That looked a decent combination, didn't it? Kokolo, as you've mentioned already, had a really good game. His first goal for the town. So, the basis is there, isn't it? So what are your thoughts?
It is there, depending on which players we're able to keep. I felt on Saturday, Kane had a good game as well. That we saw something of the talent that I think he's got. He was able to, really play on Saturday and make a difference there. Managerial wise, I think commercially, Gunny would be a killer on the season ticket sales. I think, I don't know if chairmen make decisions on a commercial basis, but, going around the town, Gunning has very little support from fans. And a lot have said, if he's there, I'm not buying a season ticket. Well, we know someone will buy a season ticket, but they're saying that. As a manager, I don't know if the new assistant is having any impact, and whether the new assistant helped us get to the formation and the makeup that we did on Saturday. When it comes to thinking of the alternatives for managers, I look at what Darrell Clark has done at Cheltenham, taking over when they had 0 goals and 0 points, and they could still go down, but he's certainly shown the ability to manage with limited resources. Are there those managers that we would attract?
Well, Michael says, has Jimmy Shan come in? Hang on, just flipped up. To take a look at what we have with his mate Ben Garner coming back and Shan assistant. Well, Andrew, we've asked you this question before. You've had Ben Garner alongside you a couple of times. What are your thoughts? What do you know about the Jimmy Shan appointment? What is that about?
Well, the sort of initial version of which there appear to be multiple versions is that he's certainly here just till the end of the season to start with, to just kind of come in and help out Gavin Gunning, really. Obviously, he knows Jamie Russell from West Bromwich Albion. They both sort of came through or part of the academy coaching there. So there is that obvious link that he's someone that Jamie Russell knows and trusts. But he was sort of pretty clear when we spoke to him initially. He thought he was going to sit out the rest of the season because he'd been working with Darren Moore and was lucky enough to avoid going to Port Vale with Darren Moore. So he said he was going to sort of take some time out, but he's clearly been persuaded into sort of come and have a look. I think he's certainly sort of fairly active in the work he does on the training ground. I don't know if the fact that we sort of had 2 slightly different plans to deal with Notts County and the sort of change in formation Barrow. I don't know how much of that is his sort of idea or Gavin Gunning's idea, but things do seem to have perked up a little since he arrived. Is he a candidate for the manager? Very, very hard to tell, because there's no kind of hints or wisps or puffs of smoke about anyone really taking over. No matter how hard you try and pry at them, it's like, we've got Gavin Gunning to the end of the season, and then
that's it.
It does feel like the club strategy, such as it was to kind of sail the ship into dock for the end of the season, which they've now kind of done to the minimum level required, and then hopefully reboot and refresh and sort of reinvigorate everyone. Whether that will happen or not is another matter altogether.
Well, we should be planning for next season, is one comment, if you want to sell season tickets. The question is why we only just brought in an assistant manager. Surely that means Gunning will be here next season, unfortunately, says Matthew. Craig, I mean, on the face of it, 4 games left. We've got AFC Wimbledon on Saturday. Then on Tuesday, it's away at Walsall. The following Tuesday, away at Grimsby. And the final game, of course, a home to Morecambe. So we don't know. Maybe there's somebody in the background in the stand planning for next. We don't know that. What would be your thought about it? I mean, somebody just said Klopp is available at the end of the season. Anyway, moving on. So this is an ideal planning time, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's what happened with Flynn, wasn't it? Flynn was hovering about, and he emerged from the Arco stand of the last game of the season last year. I mean, if it goes on, if it goes beyond May, contracts are up. There's no one overseeing the new recruitment. We've got no manager. We've got inevitably going to be reliant upon loan signings again. No one's driving that, and we're just repeating the same pattern again. So I agree. I think we need a name now, and we need a decision for ill or for good in the next couple of weeks. If you're asking me, I know you weren't asking me, but if you're asking me for a nomination, I'll go for Luke Goward. He was he's cut his teeth. He's experienced. He'd probably be quite cheap, I'd imagine. But I think he would do a good job. Might be the kind of unifying kind of candidate that might do well. Speaks very well on the media. I think had a poor season with Bournemouth this year, but he'd get my vote. And not that it matters, of course. It's not up to us, but yeah. I mean, I think that we need to act soon, don't we? Because it's just going to drift and nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, he just left his job, of course, didn't he, a couple of weeks back? He decides to step down from Boreham Wood. Hi, Steve. I'd love Colin Calderwood too. Not sure if we could afford him, though. He's at Southampton at the moment, isn't he? Let's have a look. Does Clem have any plans on pulling pints and driving a green van trying to sell season tickets? I mean, the thing is, Rob, everybody, we have this every year. I'm not going to buy my season. I'm going to renew. I mean, some won't, and clearly some will. But you do think, well, how many actually will buy season tickets next year? It's an unknown factor. I mean, a lot of people buy them just purely out of loyalty and will go anyway. Because let's be honest, Saturdays was about a long journey, but it's not just about the football, is it? It's about all the stuff that goes around football, and that's what takes you to football every Saturday. So it's an interesting one. Do you give up your season ticket and that thing, or do you just carry on?
Well, and there are other factors to play as well, aren't there? Because obviously, the more season tickets we sell, the higher the budget will be for next season, you assume. And obviously, the people who decide to renew or don't renew late on, that has an impact on who we're going to be bringing in the summer. So it's a vicious circle, whichever way you look at it. I mean, just quickly going back to the Gavin Gunning thing, I know we've given a little bit of an unbalanced view, really, in terms of we all looking for change in the summer. If he'd have been given a caretaker, an assistant manager when he came in of the Jimmy Shams variety, perhaps we wouldn't be having this discussion now. Because I do think that's a major contributory factor for the last 3 months, is the fact that Gunning's literally had to do this on his own. So I do have a touch of sympathy for him, I have to say, but that doesn't change my opinion on what should happen next. But I do think we have to give him a little bit of balance to that argument. But in terms of the overall season ticket sale scenario and whether people decide to renew, whether they don't renew, let's be honest, it's our hobby. It's what we do. It's what we do on Saturdays. And if people want to get out of that habit, and this is an excuse for them to do it, and let's be honest, finances will always dictate as well, and that will have its own bearing on many households at the moment. So no one can point fingers and say you're right or you're wrong to do it. But the reality is, if you still want to come and support the club and you still want to follow Swindon, the more people that put their money down on the table is obviously going to help us all in what we're going to hopefully see on the pitch next season. Accepting, I know people have a very different view of what happens to money when it comes into the club. And that's an argument that will always run until we get a bit more clarity.
Yes, we are in trouble. I know a lot of people not renewing if we don't have stability and appoint a manager soon. There is no long-term plan or focus. Phil, why every year we have no manager and no players? Swindon aren't unique in this, are they?
No.
You know, clubs up and down the country seems to look as though they change teams every 6 months, let alone every season. Much as Swindon have done, of course, with bringing in new players in the January window. That's the problem with the window. You can't really build because it's just constantly going to change 6 months in, isn't it?
And the lower the leagues you're in, they can't afford to tie people up on 3-year contracts,
right?
Especially if they turn out to be a duffer. You know, we can think of 1 or 2 players we've got on 3-year contracts who was done in the flush of a moment, thinking they're going to be wonderful, and they haven't turned out to be as good. And you're tied up with how you move them on. But is Clem due back in the next few weeks? Do we know?
As I understand it, yes.
Because that usually is when big decisions are made, isn't it? Yeah. And I think that will affect as well the season ticket issue. I've renewed mine already. It wasn't a question, don't I? Saturdays is County Ground and away games. It's I want my local football team to keep going. So, and I've been there through the highs and lows, and you just get on there and stick with it, because with Swindon it will never be dull. There'll always be a crisis. There'll always be something. You get our hopes up and then they're dashed. And but that's football.
Yeah, it's interesting, Andrew, isn't it? I mean, how long have you been doing that now? A little while, isn't it? But anyway, because you are a Swindon supporter, it's never like that, is it? It's always like that, or it's like that. It's never like that.
No, sort of. Even even last year, you're looking at and think, oh, they finished 10th, but we still managed to get through two managers, various ownership dramas. So yeah, there's it's very rarely we probably emerge from a season going, oh, that was unmemorable. Frequently it's not memorable for entirely the right reasons, and quite frequently it's more memorable for fear about what's going on off the pitch than on. But yeah, no, it's a pretty hairy roller coaster to ride, I think. So let's hope we're just moving from having hit the bottom point, as it were.
Yes, let's hope so. If Gunning is staying with the number 2 being confirmed, it will go a long way to stabilise the club. Get the contract sorted out. Always too late making decisions. I mean, that's the thing, Andrew, isn't it? I mean, you want to know who's going to be here next season and who's not going to be here, because in the old days, you used to turn up for the pre-season friendlies and say, oh, there's new signings. And then they were here for 2 or 3 years. But as Phil says now, that's not a thing anymore, is it? So stabilisation of players and playing staff and all that that would go a long way, wouldn't it, to appeasing people or making them feel better about things?
Yeah, I think it would help. There are sort of a number of the players who are under contract for next season, but they're ones that would automatically make your first team or not is another matter. Of course, and they say they've got options on some of the new ones, so the club could activate deals on Bycroft and Glatzel. I think it is Drynan's already here, so that there is a vague core to kind of build around, and I think you have to say that, to be fair to Jamie Russell, clearly they were doing work on who they're going to bring in January before January, even though the some of the arrivals were quite late. But you do have to have some alignment between who you're going to recruit and your coach. Really, you've got to figure out that you're both going in the same direction if you're going to do what we're trying to do at the moment, it seems. And it's almost kind of find how can I put this nicely? Assets of distressed value. Would it be something like that in business? Players who've had sort of injury records or things like that, and turn them around. Then you've got to have a coach who's able to do that, really, and who's prepared to be patient and manage their workloads and so forth, and accept that. And whether that goes with winning or not is another matter altogether. But yes, I'm wishing. But that idea of some kind of obvious strategy and alignment needs to be there, and at the moment, it's difficult to see, because I'm still not entirely sure what sort of coach Gavin Gunning is, if you like. If you see what I mean, we've seen them try sort of different plans to a certain extent, different styles by design or just them not able to execute the plans. So clarity, progress, forward thinking is not hugely evident, and it does need to be.
Yeah, sure. Craig, are you with us on Saturday? Are you making the ridiculously long journey on Saturday?
No, I'm not this Saturday.
Okay.
I'm away at a conference in Sheffield next week, and I want some. I've got some reparations to make to my wife because I've been away a lot this season. So not this week. So you can cheer on Wimbledon without me. But
okay. I will talk to you about your football scran thing, which is very interesting indeed. I appreciate Phil's comments about highs and lows, says Mark, but there have been many lows over recent years. It's the younger fans that concern me. What are we doing to keep them engaged and keep them coming back? I know many lads aged 20 plus who have stopped going and have lost interest. What does the owner think will happen when we're not being competitive? Thank you very much, Dee, for that, Mark. I mean, I would say at this point, the Junior Reds do a fabulous job entertaining the young fans on a match day. They do a fantastic job, Caroline Lane and the team. So we should say that they are really one of the pluses of this season. So well done to Caroline and the team. But Craig, keeping young fans engaged in the football club, that's quite an interesting thing to think about, isn't it?
Yeah, it's I mean, I went to my first game in 1975, and my dad lifted me over the turnstile, and there were, my mates from school went, and we went. And we weren't very good then, but we did have we had a very, very good League Cup run. But I mean, we weren't winning all the time, but you kind of go, and it was dangerous times because there was a bit of spectator violence and stuff. But it was our club, our town, and I think that there's a lot more competition now. There are other teams who are clearly more successful than us, but there are other things going on a Saturday afternoon that might be more attractive than going to the county ground. I think you're right. I think the Junior Robins is doing well and having the room, and I think I get a sense that there are more really young kids there in the last couple of years than we've seen in previous years. There's always been kind of the odd teenager that who kind of rocks along, and great, they get to away games as well sometimes, but it's the kind of, what we want is those 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, and they get bitten by the bug and they keep going. They nag their parents to go go again. And yeah, I mean, I don't do marketing. I think Rocking Robin does a good job. I think all the stuff that's in the Junior Robins room is great. That's something that is part and parcel of running a football club in the 21st century, and as well as all the other things that are in the fair game accounts, which perhaps we could talk about. But that's something that we shouldn't scrimp on, because that's what makes a sustainable football club is nurturing your supporters, and looking at I don't know what the average age of us 5 old duffers is on here today, but I mean we're not going to be here in 40 or 50 years time, but they are, and perhaps they'll be talking about the gunning line, and how we've never been as bad, hopefully. But I've got nothing to offer in terms of what more we could do. But I think that it's certainly something which we should continue to invest in. Is encouraging younger children along.
I've just realised there's many lads aged 20 plus, but of course young women go to football as well, and I quite happily put that in. I mean, how do they do that? I mean, I hate to tell you this, Rob, but 2 grandsons will be with us on Saturday, so your afternoon might be disturbed a little bit. But getting the young people involved, how do they do that?
Well, first and foremost, so you've given a good shout to the Junior Robins. Let's give a shout to the football in the community boys and girls as well, because they're absolutely outstanding. Yeah. And
congratulations on their award recently, of course.
Absolutely, and I had first-hand experience a couple of times with a few of those guys and they are just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And things that they do for disabled supporters as well. Off the pitch, we talk a lot about things that are going wrong usually in boardroom circles, but off the pitch, in terms of the volunteers and those guys who just roll their sleeves up to make our club as successful as it can be, they just do a fabulous job. And again, we should also give a good shout out to the youth system as well, shouldn't we? Because let's be honest, that seems to have been a neglected factor at Swindon for about the last 20 years. But suddenly an FA Youth Cup run this season, the under-16s as well, having a really good season too. That is one of the things, to be honest, that will attract the younger support and keep the younger support there. The very nature of the fact that you've got some of your own coming through, if those some of your own can actually start to find places in the first team and really start to excel, that will get that sense of community back. And that, I think, is what we're missing. And we've talked about this many times over the course of the last couple of years. It just feels like everyone's pulling in different directions when you start hearing conversations on social media. There's always disquiet. There's always unrest. We know that things need to improve in terms of the communication strategy of the club. We know the chairman hasn't covered himself in glory over the course of the last 18 months or so with some of the decisions that he's made. And that's come back to haunt him as a result of it. And he's taken the flack as it comes. But the reality is, if we're going to be a successful football club at whatever level, in whatever division, we have to be pulling in the same direction. The fans need to get behind the club. The club need to do something to get the fans behind them. And at the moment, that, I think, is our worry. And Craig said earlier on about the worry for next season. Thankfully, we don't have to worry for this season now. But the worry was that if we find ourselves in a relegation scrap and end up in the National League, where do we go from there? How do we find our way back? Because everybody is pulling in different directions. If there's one plea that I can make for next season, just get back on board, whatever it is, whether you agree with it, whether you disagree with it, whatever it is, for the 90 minutes the team are playing, or the 120 minutes it is now with stoppage time, just get behind the team. And let's see if that makes a difference. And if it doesn't, so be it. But I just want to see everybody pulling in the same direction again. And as I say, there's a lot of good work going on off the pitch at Swindon. There's no doubt about that. And it would just be lovely if we could all just have a season where we put aside our differences and actually get back behind the team again. It sort of happened in the year that Clem took over. It wasn't uniform. There were times when it didn't happen, but you could see the difference that made to the team on the pitch. When everyone was behind them, lots of people travelling away from home, we were out shouting every team that we went to play against. And look at the performances. We ended up in the playoffs. Nobody gave us a prayer at that at the start of the season.
Well, Johnny Leafield did. I must go back to way back at the start of that season. On this very panel, Johnny Leafield, formerly of the Advertiser, said we would be in the playoffs, and we went, fair play, Johnny.
He had his fingers crossed behind his back, though, Vic.
Yeah, he did, yeah. Ricky says, we are behind the club, but they're not doing anything to make us happy. Interesting point, Phil. How do you make football fans happy? Is it purely by winning games every week? Is that the only way?
I think winning is helpful, but characters as well. Harry McCurdy, for example, as soon as he just moves off the bench just to blow his nose or something, the fans get excited. He is a player who excites fans. And, we don't know what his health condition has been lately. It doesn't seem to have been used as much as I anticipated he would have been. But he's the sort of person that people talk about. Last season, when he was crashing all the goals in, the fans were buzzing about it. It gave them something, a level of excitement. As soon as he got the ball, you felt the level of excitement rise up. And for younger people, it is being able to identify with an exciting player and a hero that they think, wow, this is something. And, he's a bit of a maverick character, but that helps as well in one sense because they love it. But it's that sort of thing. I think that this club needs to have at least one or two characters out there on the pitch that excite people.
Yeah, well, absolutely. We wish him well, of course, in his continuing recovery. I mean, he could have had 2 or 3 on Saturday, Andrew, couldn't he? Let's be honest. He was only on for 10 minutes and he could have had a hat-trick.
Yeah, no, there are a couple of decent chances at the end, were there? I think everyone's sort of picked up different bits. The winning clearly is important because that you can only see that by the attendances and the energy. I mean, the energy of that sort of playoff, that kind of playoff season, and when people felt like they got rid of the sort of the cloak of Lee power over the club, as it were, and that really did feel like a sort of renewal and a re-energization, and people came back who hadn't come back. So, if there were regime change, I wonder if that would happen again, or whether people would feel more sort of snake bitten, as it were. But I think it certainly needs some kind of more defined leadership from the top than we see. It's like, listen, this is our plan, and we can give you our plan, and this is how we're going to do it, rather than we have these aims, but we can't really articulate how we're going to turn these aims into reality. So I think you want to hear some of that. But as for how you attract young people, asking someone of my age who is not a parent is probably not very productive.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? No team can guarantee success. I think that's fair to say, isn't it? You can't. No football team, unless you're Man City, perhaps, could buy whoever you want. But no team can guarantee they'll do well in a season. I think we should make that point. But Swindon is a massive club, well supported. Can't get my head around what's going on, says Kevin. Daz St George says, well said, Rob. I don't know which bit he said was well said, but anyway, it was a well said there somewhere. You mentioned the fair game report there, Craig. What was your take on it?
Look, I'm not an accountant. Listen, I'm not an accountant. I have some good friends who are accountants, but my understanding is that A lot of questions which were asked when our owner was back last time, a few months ago. We were told that those questions would be addressed come the fair game report, and as I understand it, those questions, particularly around admin cost, haven't been further disaggregated. So in other words, the report is really a kind of a glossed up version of what we had already that was reported to Companies House. So I'm not going to say anything more than that. The last thing I want to do is be accused of libel or slander. I'm treading very carefully, but there's a lot more questions than answers. From looking at that, and I've done scrutiny. I've been involved in management boards of various different organisations. Looking at that report, I've got a load of questions, and I think given our history of the last 33 years, I think we're right to be worried. We're right to be concerned, and I think we've got a right to ask those questions and be a bit critical and be a bit sceptical. And I think as we mentioned before, the common strategy hasn't helped that. So I'm not putting the boot in here. I'm not skilled enough to be able to do that because I'm not an accountant. But my feeling is that the answers that I wanted just aren't there. There are still, I think worrying kind of holes in that. I'll say no more about that. I don't want to get into trouble.
No, okay, fair enough. Well, you made your point. That's fair enough. I'm not an accountant either, so I can't go into that. Rob is, how can I put this, familiar with figures. I mean, how did you view it?
Not quite sure what sort of figures, but yeah, I'm familiar with them. It's, I mean, my view is it's, I'm not really, I can draw a line under where we are, and a lot of people can't, but I can draw a line under it as long as I hear something that tells me what's happening moving forward. And that's my big issue as it stands at the moment. What's happened has happened. We can't turn the clock back. We can't change it. However good, however well-intentioned, however otherwise things have been over the course of the last X number of years, the bottom line is that the club need a completely different communication strategy from this point forward. It hasn't worked. It's not engaged everybody. It's not given people the answers, as Craig's just said, to the questions that they were asking. Now, forget those questions for now. If you put down on paper at this point in time, this is what happens moving forward. This is the situation as to where we are now, and this is how we make things better. If we get those type of comments coming back from the club, then to a certain extent, you can draw a line under what's past, unless, of course, there are more hidden things that we don't know about yet that will come back and bite us on the backside. And unfortunately for Clem at this moment in time, he's got a legacy of that. And of course, with the issues that are still outstanding in the club at the moment, that will always remain the way. So it really does need leadership now from the man in charge. It needs proper leadership. It needs some accountability in terms of where we are and how we've got here. But the most important thing is the future. And he needs to address the future, and he needs to address that ASAP. Because as he made it very clear in the fans forum back in January, that fair game audit was going to be the thing that the club put their house, I wouldn't say put their house in order, but it was every one of those questions that people were asking was supposed to be covered off in the fair game report. And they're not. It's simple as that. They're not all covered by that report. So there are still things that need to be said. But as I said, for me, it's the future. Forget the past, it's the future. What goes on now is the most important.
Hi, Mark Merriman. Hello to you. Evening all. To be successful, any football club needs everyone, fans, management, players, board, etc., to moving in the same direction. This clearly has not been the case in the last few seasons. Phil, I think it's fair to say over the last 30-odd years, troubled times is a sort of blasé phrase for what we've had. And you really do want a little period now where there aren't troubled times. Do you see there any possibility of that?
The one thing that worries me is the size of the debt we still owe to Clem. The debt we had has just been transferred to owing to Clem Mathony. If ever he ups and goes, that debt is a heck of size that anybody taking over has got to deal with. And that does worry me. I'm also worried about the way in which there doesn't seem to have been a root and branch look at how efficient the club is being run. I have an interest in a club close to Vic, Exeter City, and they have just published their accounts, and they made a £318,000 profit last year. They've lower gates than Swindon do. They're in a higher league than Swindon. They have to pay even more money to attract players to the southwest because of where they are at, and that Exeter has an air of being efficiently run. And Swindon, I think, I was hoping Rob Angus would be able to do that, that bringing his business know-how into the club. I don't know about the new chief exec, how much business acumen he's got, but you've got to cut your costs to invest in the team. And that's what I'm looking for. That's where you get your stability, is when the club is going along with the size of gates that we've been getting. They ought to be producing bigger income revenues that would enable the club to move forward. But a lot of it seems to be going down a black hole somewhere.
Alex Hartridge, by the way, has just been told that he's released by Exeter at the end of the season. Decent centre half. Just thought I'd say that.
Hello. The other week. He's good.
Yeah, he is good. Yeah. Hello, Adam. Winning was one thing, but just having players who show a bit of heart and desire when putting on a town shirt every week would get your fans behind the team. Come on, you Reds. Excellent summary from Rob and Craig on the Fair Game report. Hopefully we can feed this back to the club at the next AB meeting, since it didn't appear to meet what Clem had promised. What are your thoughts on it, Andrew? I mean, you had to deal from a reporting side of it all. How was it?
Yeah, well, I think I looked at it and I downloaded it with some interest and saw quite a number of pictures, and perhaps not the words. I think we were maybe anticipating from the billing it had been given, really. So it did kind of restate the position. I think seeing on Twitter people who are marginally more accounting brains said, well, it gave a little bit more information on the catering and things, but going back to the sort of the core issue that Craig has touched at there, it's not easy to understand from the outsides, even though football clubs leak money in all sorts of strange ways that we tend to forget, how the outgoings have got so high, even though the incomings it don't seem that bad for a club of our level. It didn't really put much light on on that gap and why the debt is continuing to grow. And I think that's what we were hoping to see, and we didn't see really. So I think that was all kind of a bit. I think we were left feeling a bit flat, weren't we? That it was more a restatement of the position rather than some kind of audit or something that gave us a greater understanding of how the position has come to be.
Right, thank you very much, Steve, for that, Andrew. Craig, a minute and a half to go before your eclipse moment. Are you? I mean, looking outside my window, you've got no chance. Although it has gone dark, I can confirm, but I don't think that's anything to do with the eclipse. I think that's to do with the extensive cloud cover, quite frankly. So if it's all right with you, Craig, and you're not desperate to go out and use your glasses.
I'm really not. No.
We'll just finish off with a quick look ahead to Saturday and Wimbledon. What are your thoughts on that? Did you go to the game? You did go to the one in London. You had a ridiculous journey there, didn't you? And then probably saw 4 games before you actually went to the Wimbledon game.
I did, yeah. Again, Wimbledon away was lovely because I got to meet up with the London Reds, and Wimbledon away was one of my favourite away days of the season. The game was rubbish. It was one of these away days where it was ruined by the football, much like Sutton the other week. But I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw.
Okay. Rob?
I just want to see a similar type of performance to what we saw.
Are we going to keep the same team? I mean,
we've not been great at doing that, but I don't think you can justify taking anyone out of it. Let's put it that way, based on that performance. And I think it's more a case of that consistency factor, isn't it? It's the fact that they've not been consistent enough during the course of the season, and that's why he keeps chopping and changing. Or is it because he keeps chopping and changing that we're not consistent enough? There's that you can never really quite square that circle. But We got well and truly thrashed at Wimbledon.
Hmm.
I'd have to say that they were probably on the day as good a team as we've played this season.
Yeah.
I thought they were just the sort of type of team that would find themselves towards the top of the table. I'm quite surprised they've not ended up there, if I'm truly honest, based on that performance.
Yeah,
So
they're currently 8th with 62 points from 43 games. So
yeah, perhaps it's just more of an indictment of the fact that that's how bad we were, as opposed to how good Wimbledon were. But I know they lost El Hamadi, didn't they, in the January transfer window, and he was scoring all their goals. So that has clearly had a big impact on the rest of their season. I don't think we'll lose on Saturday. I think Swindon will get a positive result. I'm not going 2-2 because I'm a Swindon fan. 4-0 Swindon.
Oh, marvellous. I just remember seeing their substitutes at Wimbledon warming up and thinking, my God, they're all giants.
Yeah.
Compared to our team. They were huge, including Josh Davison, of course, who took a bit of stick from the town for travelling fans. Phil, what's your thoughts on it?
I desperately hope he keeps the same team, because I think the home fans need to see a good performance. Those of us who went to Barrow, the 220 of us, we were privileged in one sense to see a really good, wholehearted performance where every player was putting their finger out and really going for it and playing as a team. So I hope he keeps the same team. If he does, 2-1.
Excellent. Yeah, Kane had his best game, Andrew, because of our new midfield player, didn't he? Our new defensive midfield player. Didn't he allow Kane to play? Andrew's gone very quiet.
I think it helped. Sorry, that's better. I think it helped Kane and McEachran both sort of show better form than we've seen recently. Very relieved Al Hamadi is playing in a higher division after his performance in the reverse game with Ipswich. So generally, Wimbledon games don't have too many goals in. I'm sorry to warn everyone of that in advance. So let's say 1-1, and I think I'm in agreement. It would be nice to largely see continuity from the side that played well there, and if we're lucky, maybe a chance for some of the youngsters to get 20, a couple of them maybe to get 20 or 25 minutes at the end and give them a nice home introduction.
Charlie's still looking for his 200th goal, isn't he?
He's still in pursuit. How
many does he need? One?
Yeah, he's on 199. So
yeah,
he's been on there for a little while now.
He has. So it'd be nice for him to come on and get that, wouldn't it? That would be good. Ricky says keep the same starting 11. Jackie says same team, 3-0 Swindon. Adrian Smith says don't change a winning team. I think that's pretty much the same for all of us. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for coming in at very short notice, because our original guest wasn't able to make tonight. Craig, if you want to go off and see the eclipse, but basically,
no, it was just comedy value. I've got to have a prop, so I thought I'd dig out my sunglasses. No, really, I'm not going out to watch the eclipse. So don't worry.
Well, I don't think you bother really. There's no point. Thank you very much indeed, Phil. Thank you very much indeed, Andrew. Thank you very much indeed. Andy Garrett has sent a message saying, "Do you ever take your hat off?" We've had this discussion many times before, and it's entirely up to you whether you do in the next. There you go. Marvellous. Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed, Craig and Rob and everybody. Chris.
Yeah, echo what Vic said. Thank you very much for coming in at very short notice. Vic and I had this feeling that our guest might not be the most reliable, so we did have a backup. But thank you very, very much. It's much appreciated.
I did a lot of homework too. I tell you.
Yeah. We will be back next Monday for the review of the Wimbledon game. So we'll see you all then. Enjoy the game, and we will see whoever's coming on Thursday. We will see you then.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Thursday. Okay. Thanks so much. See you soon. Bye bye.